Welcome back to another episode of the My Latin Life podcast. Since 2014, My Latin Life has been your trusted guide to traveling and living in Latin America. Today, we have a highly anticipated episode for you. Today's episode is the El Salvador Roundtable. We have assembled an illustrious group of El Salvador enthusiasts, one of the greatest groupings ever put together on a single podcast, potentially. And we'll introduce them, and then we'll hop right into it, talking about all things El Salvador, the vision of El Salvador for the future, the Bitcoin economy, the real estate market, the cost of living, should you move down there, how to move down there, all that good stuff. So we'll try to get through these introductions as fast as possible, and then we'll kind of hop into the combos. So first, I'll introduce Mr. Herbert Esmahan.
Hey there.
Herbert, you're in the same political party as Bukele, right? Something like that?
I'm an affiliate to Nuevas Ideas, and I recently ran for office. Although I wasn't elected in the primaries, I'm still supporting the movement as much as I can because I'm very patriotic about what's happening here in El Salvador. It's life-changing for millions of Salvadorans, and I think we're setting a good example for the world.
Nuevas Ideas. I love it. We have Ladislas from The Wandering Investor. Probably a lot of our audience know Ladislas.
Hey, how you doing?
Good. We have Ronny from the Bitcoin hardware store.
Thank you for having me, Vance. I've been watching and following your stuff on Twitter or X. Ex-Canadian here who escaped the cold and escaped the tyranny of Canada, and now I'm living my best life here in El Salvador. So thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And then we have a squad of 4 people in the same room. This is audio only, so they won't be able to see it, but they have like a whole setup. You guys must be in Berlin, right? Berlin, El Salvador.
The Bitcoin City.
The Bitcoin City, absolutely.
Bitcoin City. So over there we have Nicki and James El Salvador, previous podcast guests. We have Quentin, and we have Pierre.
Hello.
Hi.
Hey everyone. Thanks for having
Hey,
us back.
everyone.
And Pierre.
Yes, I am here 10 weeks in from Canada, another refugee from Trudeau's paradise.
So we got a good mix here today. We got Ladislas kind of holding up the, I guess, institutional immigration consultant side of things. We got Herbert from Nuevas Ideas, the political party of Nayib Bukele. We got the whole Bitcoin City team in Berlin, El Salvador. They're creating a circular economy around Bitcoin and crypto and all that good stuff in El Salvador. We got Ronnie's doing the hardware store. I imagine you're selling, mining devices, all that stuff. You came down from Canada as well. So great to see kind of a diverse group of people and ideas, and everyone's trying to contribute to El Salvador in a new way. And when I look at El Salvador, it seems to really stand above the rest of Latin America as a place that's almost like the San Francisco of Latin America in a way, a place where people can come, they have ideas, they want to do things different, and they have this space to really take advantage of that. Now we have a very safe country in El Salvador, the safest country in the Americas. You can kind of be yourself. You can walk the streets with AirPods. You can, start startups. You can invest in businesses, lots of big changes. You can buy a passport for $1 million. You can do all these different things, right? So I thought the best way to get started would be to get Herbert to give us a little bit of the vision of El Salvador for the future. We're only a couple of years into this thing in terms of the great turnaround, the most impressive turnaround in modern history, basically, of a country. And I would love to hear Herbert's take on where we're at and where we're going.
Thank you very much, Vance. First of all, it's a pleasure to be here with everyone. And what's happening in El Salvador is something that is extremely exciting, not just for Salvadorans who are witnessing it firsthand, but also for people all around the world who are being inspired by our country. Because as you mentioned, or as we all know, El Salvador used to be one of the most dangerous, if not the most dangerous country in the world. Now we are amongst the most safest. And that is thanks to President Nayib Bukele's policies that have been extremely effective, not only in combating crime, but opening up the country to more opportunity, giving its citizens the possibility of better education, of better job opportunities, of developing as human beings. As you know, as humans, it is our God given duty to always move forward, to always evolve. And sadly, the way of doing politics of the past, like the establishment as we all know it, kind of locked humanity into a sort of stagnation where humans were not able to fully develop themselves. And we see many regions, specifically the Latin American region, which we're talking about, that were caught up in this. And President Bukele's government, miraculously and with a lot of hard work as well, managed to break free from this. And right now, our country is in a stage of its history, in a part of its history, where it has broken free from this and it is allowed to evolve. It is allowed to develop its full potential. And we're seeing it in record time because what the old school establishment political parties didn't do in over 30, 40, 50 years is being done right now in 3, 4, 5 years, you know. So it's a rapid we are in rapid motion right now for the best of the country. And I think that's setting a very great example, not just for our neighboring countries, but also for countries in other continents.
Mm-hmm. And Herbert, I'll put it back to you. So I believe I read from Naib that, stage one was getting safety under control, putting the gangs in jail. That's largely been taken care of. And he put out this tweet saying step two is the economy. And now he's putting more focus on the economy. He's done a lot of different initiatives. He's removed different tariffs and taxes. He's tried to incentivize people to come to El Salvador, et cetera. Could you speak to what we're seeing on the economy side of things?
Absolutely. As you mentioned, El Salvador is becoming a place where everyone's coming to share their bright ideas. We have created an environment where people and companies are allowed to thrive. Instead of having a government that's going to limit you, we have a government that is going to facilitate things for you. And this isn't just for Salvadoran nationals. This also applies to foreign entities, foreign companies, like, for example, Google, who recently opened a headquarters here in El Salvador, to come and to not only help the country develop into its great potential, but also for them to thrive.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think our team over in Berlin, Bitcoin City, kind of speaks to that. They're all foreigners. Quentin's from France, Pierre's from Canada, Nicki and James are from El Salvador,
Yeah.
New Zealand, Australia.
Almost El Salvador, New
We're
Zealand.
very
Definitely not
multicultural.
Australia, New Zealand.
I don't know why I got El Salvador and Australia mixed up, but
New Zealand.
that's like kind of a testament there. And they're in, Berlin, El Salvador is a town of what, 15, 20,000 people, something like that, a little bit bigger.
Yeah, correct. El Salvador is currently undergoing a census, and I think it's the first one in 16 or 17 years. So the numbers are really unclear, but yeah, approximately 15 to 20,000 people.
Which is crazy. It's a beautiful mountain town. I love these Latin mountain towns. I think it's one of the best,
Yeah,
like most underrated parts of Latin America, where you got the coffee,
agreed.
you got mangoes, you got moderate weather, all that stuff. But modest small town. And now we have foreigners moving in because they're seeing the opportunity with technology, with crypto, with safety, with going where you're treated best. So maybe you guys could kind of speak a little bit to, I guess, how you've seen things evolve. I know Nicki and James have been there for kind of since the beginning of the change 2-3 years ago, how you've seen things evolve locally in Berlin.
Cool. So we lived on the beach for first 18 months, and the last, whatever it is, 8 or 9 months we've been up here. Being up here has definitely been the highlight of our visit so far. We've really enjoyed being immersed in the culture a lot more up here on the mountain town, really enjoyed the temperature, and the community that's gathered up here. It's awesome. Really enjoying it.
Yeah, and I think the Bitcoin up here, the amount of people who are using Bitcoin, it's not just foreigners. You know, the locals are actually have really
Mm.
adopted it. They are finding that you talk to a lot of shop owners, and it would be 50%. Locals using Bitcoin and foreigners using Bitcoin. So the locals are definitely coming and spending their Bitcoin here as well, which is awesome.
If I can jump in there, I went to Berlin in December for a few days to go look at real estate, and I saw the whole Bitcoin thing. I was a little skeptical. I was like, oh, let's see if it's just propaganda or if it's for real.
Mm.
And I just went to some random barber shop, and then I started talking to the guys about Bitcoin. And yeah, they're like, yeah, no, we use, we accept Bitcoin, et cetera. And then I asked, oh, is it only the gringos that are paying with Bitcoin that come through? It's like, no, 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 some locals as well. And they were saying that about 20% of their cuts were using Bitcoin. I was really impressed with this.
I love
Yeah,
hearing that from
Yes.
other
to
people.
add to that, big El Salvador and Bitcoin is really for the early adopter. It's for the person who thinks outside the box and is willing to get into the nitty gritty, put their boots on, and get to work. Right now, El Salvador is the place where there is value. If you are like myself, studied economics, and you are a value investor, you need to be in El Salvador. El Salvador right now is the place where the opportunities are endless. The growth that I've been seeing being here on the beach in Surf City have been just over the
Mm.
last 3 years that I've been here. This place is almost unrecognizable,
Mm.
and the growth is coming
Very
within
true.
the
So,
people within the
Ronnie, you're in the beach.
foreigners from outside as well. So it's absolutely fantastic being here and seeing this growth in person.
So, Ronnie, you're in the beach, right?
Correct. I'm in El Zonte, which is
Yeah.
where the Bitcoin circular economy
Okay.
started here in Salvador.
And if I had to guess, Herbert, are you living in the capital or where are you at?
Yes, I'm in the capital, correct.
Cool. So we got some good representation here. We got San Salvador. We got kind of Bitcoin Beach. We got Berlin, Bitcoin City. Ladislas is hopping in wherever he can find a real estate deal. And maybe he was listening to Ronnie and saying, "What do you?" He's like, "Where's the value? I can't friggin' find a house for less than 300K or something." Uh,
Yeah, I mean I went to El Salvador because a lot of my clients, I help people invest in real estate internationally, were asking me about El Salvador because El Salvador is so good at PR. Essentially, I mean, your president Herbert is a PR machine. He knows how to how to put a little fundamentally insignificant country on the world headlines, and that's a real skill set. That's an asset.
And
So
sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to mention something very important worth mentioning is that at, it's not just something that you hear on the media, that you see on Twitter. It's something that you can come see for yourself, as all of us here have seen for ourselves. And that's what gives this project legitimacy as well. Because one thing is just hearing about it on the news or an article or a blog or a podcast, and another thing is actually flying down here and witnessing these changes, which we all have. And that's one of the key factors here.
that's fundamentally what attracted me to El Salvador because there's the whole okay, security issue solved. The country almost defaulted on its debt about 18 months ago. The bond yield shot up. It was a bit risky. But what's happened in the meantime is you can see the foreign exchange reserves of El Salvador just shooting up, which means that the resilience of the economy is really improving. Also, the open U.S. border has helped in the sense that fundamentally, anyone in Central America who is either a criminal and needs to go and make better money somewhere else can just hop over to the U.S., or anyone who is unemployed or underemployed again, can just go to the US, going to a strong labor market, or commit crime, make money, send back to the country. So that's hugely beneficial for Central America as a whole. It's the spare capacity it has just goes to the U.S. and comes back in the form of free money remittances.
so
So you just
Ladislas,
see these.
let me ask you a question. Sorry to interrupt there.
Sure.
So I followed definitely a lot of your content on El Salvador. I saw that you like went and got a tax ID. You got it like same day. I thought that was cool. Economy's working smooth. I think you went down to Bitcoin Beach, checking things out there. I actually didn't know that you went to Berlin. Obviously, kind of half the group here is based in Berlin. What drew you to getting out there? Because it is a little bit out of the way.
Yeah, because I didn't find value. So what I see is an economy that is undergoing really fantastic reforms from an economic point of view, and that's great, especially the fight against white collar corruption. Speaking to people on the ground, the lawyers, etc., they're essentially telling me, look, you can do business here. There's no corruption. You're going to be dealing with Latin bureaucracy, though that's gradually improving, but you won't deal with corruption. So the conclusion I reached is that actually it's a great country to invest in actively, but the whole optimism of the people, and I'm talking of like 85% of the population is extremely optimistic, which you don't really find anywhere in the world, has translated into very optimistic asset prices, right? So when you go around and you ask for the price of houses, of apartments, of land, etc., the
Nobody
prices
wants to
just
sell.
nobody wants to sell. Everyone's like, prices only go up, prices only go up. Everyone's super optimistic. So it's reached a point where land and real estate are now more same price, if not even a bit more expensive than in Panama. So from a value point of view, from an asset point of view, I don't find it compelling. However, the good news is that Salvadorians are capturing the capital gains for themselves. So
True.
that's good news, because it's not like it all got sold off to foreigners and foreigners are making the money. The actual valuations are in the hands of Salvadorians. So good for the people. But again, what I find is it's a great country if you want to do business, if you want to actively invest, create value, etc. But just as a pure speculator to just buy, hold, do something, land, blah blah, um, not the right market.
Mm.
Well,
So
if I can
which
interject.
is why I went to Berlin, because I was looking for first thing, you go to the capital city, San
Right.
Salvador. I was just going around looking at these new developments. Again, Panama City prices. I don't know, San Salvador is nice, but it's not quite there yet. Then I went to the beaches and I was like, oh my God, this is really expensive. Then I was like, okay, let's look for value somewhere else. And then I was like, okay, Berlin looks interesting. Went there, loved it. Guys, you live in a beautiful little town. I, when I booked my place on booking.com, I made the mistake of staying in Alegria. So I had to, I don't know, there's at night, there's no bus and the taxis don't go there. I had to like hop at the back of pickup trucks. It was cool. People were friendly. Lovely little town, but no one was selling. The agents had barely anything. Then
Fair.
I'd go house to house asking if anyone's selling, and people would just laugh at my face, be like, "Why would anyone
Honestly, that's
sell right
kind of a
now?"
bullish indicator.
Yeah, it
That's a
is.
good. That's kind of what you want. Like you don't want people to be like trying to sell in Skip Town or something.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I
like I
think
was late.
Let's flip over to Ronnie. Ronnie has an interesting background because he grew up in Canada, but he is from El Salvadorian descent, and he's decided to come back to El Salvador to take advantage of the opportunities there, escape Canadian tyranny, and mix things up. So, Ronnie, you wanted to weigh in?
Yeah, I wanted to say, and I think the Bitcoin Berlin team might agree with me, but with the El Salvador aspect and the value aspect, it's I see it as you're gonna get El Salvador at the price you deserve, and right now we are going
Nice.
Yes.
to we are optimistic. I mean, you're right on that. We are super optimistic, and we're building. I was telling Vance here when he asked me and he sent me the message that there's a lot of people that are going to be on this roundtable, and I said that doesn't surprise me one bit because El Salvador is full of a bunch of doers, people who really want to make a change. And so we're here, and everybody is optimistic considering the long history that El Salvador has. My family left in the 80s because of the war. There really was, El Salvador was a desolate place, you could say, just somewhere you didn't really want to be. And my father would tell me all these stories that actually kept me from even coming back to El Salvador and made me, during my adolescent years, I was in Canada and I had zero interest in coming back to El Salvador. I thought my life was perfect in Canada. I lived in a big city like Toronto. I had everything I needed at my fingertips. And now, as I get older, and I have my own thoughts, and just seeing the world after traveling, El Salvador just called my name. And I didn't plan on being here, but the the project, just like just like we were saying before, just like Herbert was saying before, it's this project that's really so intriguing. I want to be a part of it. There's a lot of work to do, but that doesn't scare me one bit. Like, the value, I see the value there because I come from a place like Toronto where things are extremely overpriced. And if you're on the Bitcoin side, you know that they're going to continue printing fiat forever. So I see the value in it being here in El Salvador, and being in a country like the one that Nayib Bukele is running.
Herbert.
Yes, I agree 100% with Ronnie. And adding to that, there's many societal issues in most first world countries that are starting to become a great problem for the people living there. Because I myself, like Ronnie, used to live abroad. I was born and raised in the U.S. My parents are Salvadoran, so I grew up as a dual citizen.
I was gonna be like,
Um,
why the hell do you have like a broadcaster perfect voice, dude?
Well, the voice comes from my family's genes, but the good English comes from living in the States. But anyways, back to what I was saying, there's a lot of issues that are occurring in first world nations. Like for example, I just like Ronnie, I used to live in Florida in the United States. He used to live in Canada. We lived in first world nations supposedly. And we thought our lives were perfect. We thought we had it there. There was no need to go back to our roots. And as time went by, we started seeing this societal decline in which you didn't have, for example, cultural unity anymore. You started seeing huge divisions within society. And we all know that the greatest way, the easiest way to break a nation, to destroy a people, is by dividing them from within. Something that President Bukele has also expressed in various interviews. So, the point that I'm trying to make here is that Latin America and El Salvador specifically, which is what we're talking about, still has this cultural unity that brings a country together. Not
Yeah.
only are we seeing it in politics, but we're seeing it in day-to-day life. Like, I think I speak for everyone here. If you've been to the small towns in El Salvador, you see the community environment. Wandering investor, for example, you mentioned that you rode a pickup truck, you got a lift, and they took you to where you wanted to go because there were no taxi cabs. That kind of community environment where everyone helps each other is still very powerful in Latin America, in El Salvador, and it's something that first world nations are rapidly losing. So, if you want to raise your family, start your business in a country where you're going to have cultural unity, that feeling of not being left alone, not just by governments, I'm talking also by your neighbors, then El Salvador is the place to be. I know many people who had perfect lives in Europe and America, and they're like, you know what? I feel safer
Mm.
raising my kids in a country like El Salvador where the government won't tell me how I have to educate them, where the government's going to grant me the freedom that I need to grow as a human being. Because what was the major factor that attracted people, for example, to the United States? It was the freedom that they used to have to grow as human
Mhm.
beings. That's what made America the country it became at one point. But now that first world nations are taking away freedoms,
Mhm.
people are looking elsewhere.
I
I'd
know.
say that I
That's what
feel,
I'm looking for, man. I want that
yeah,
America vibe. I want that San
exactly.
Francisco vibe, just not in America, basically.
Sadly, it's the point that the world has come to because truly, I believe that in El Salvador, I feel and I'm not saying this because I support the political party, because I support President Bukele, which I fully do, but I'm saying this from the perspective of a common citizen. I feel a lot more free in El Salvador to grow as a human being than I ever did living in Florida. I feel that I have more opportunities here. I feel that if you make a positive uh, change, if you work on a positive project here, you can actually have a good social impact, something that you can't do in a first world nation. El Salvador is like basically virgin territory to do good things. And that is why we're trying to
Mhm.
attract the best of the best to come and help us develop. President Bukele has said in many of his speeches, if you want to come help build, welcome. And that's basically the message of El Salvador to the world.
Mhm.
And I want to just step in there too, Herbert. One of the things that we find here in Berlin, and I'm sure it's everywhere else, but we have the Gastronomica in the park, and it's 3 evenings a week. And on the Sunday night, you will see all the people out. You'll see all the families, and everyone's gathering around, and everyone's sitting at tables and chatting and talking. And we had a friend here recently, and they said, back in the United States, everyone would be sitting in their homes with their doors shut, watching television. The families wouldn't be interacting like that, and you definitely see it here.
That's true. That's
Mm,
true.
mm,
That there is strong family unity here in this country, and I truly believe that it's necessary to have it in a healthy society. Otherwise, your society breaks apart, as we're seeing in many other countries.
yeah.
Let's get the Berlin team there involved. Herbert's talking a lot about building, getting involved. Maybe the Berlin team there could talk a little bit about your experiences building. We haven't heard much from Quentin yet. I know you're up to a lot of stuff.
Yeah, so the project in Berlin started last year. We're actually celebrating the its anniversary in a month or
Mm.
two
The
weeks
end of
Two
this
weeks.
month, yeah.
at the end of this month. Yeah. So the first time I visited Berlin was September of 2022, I think. And as you said, Vance, it was this mountain town that had this potential vibe, just like the Mexican mountain towns that I had visited earlier. And the climate was great, and it had this potential to become something really unique in El Salvador and also in Central America. So we decided to stay for a week and later continued our journey. We went to an island called La Piraya, where we started a circular economy project as well. And during this time, I saw that Nikki, James, Gerardo, Evelyn, Charlie, Rams were actually building a circular economy in the mountain in Berlin. And so this is when I decided that it would be the place I would live in for a while. And since then, uh, the progress that has been made in the city is just incredible. You have more than 100 businesses that accept Bitcoin, and not only accept Bitcoin, but actively accept it. And that for some of them, ask you to pay them in Bitcoin so that they can go and see other businesses so that they can pay their own suppliers in Bitcoin. So this is actually, it's fantastic. I think it's unique in the world. And the work that is being done here is really, really impressive. Um, I think there are many
Could I
challenges
put a pause on
ahead.
that before we jump on to the challenges, Quentin? We mentioned the term circular economy a couple times, and I wanted to put a definition on that because I think that might mean different things to different people. Is that purely like a crypto term, like circular in the sense that I pay you in crypto, you pay me in crypto, or does it have other connotations? Maybe I could put it to James. James, how do you think about circular economies?
Uh, for me, at the moment, what I'm seeing here in Berlin is a liquidity pool. I'm seeing an amazing liquidity pool of US dollars to Bitcoin specifically. If we You don't see other cryptocurrencies here because we don't want to confuse people. So basically, if you have other cryptocurrencies and you want to come and be in Berlin, that's okay. But basically, you're going to want to transfer your funds to Bitcoin and then spend them here. But there's a liquidity pool of USD and Bitcoin, and there's also a liquidity pool of human capital the people that are coming, and this is just going to speak back to the opportunity, which is that people are coming now to start their own thing, like a pulled pork business, like not an Airbnb, what do you call it? A bed and breakfast, tourism business, and other little boutiquey businesses. People are coming here to start things around the energy and the people and the capital that is flowing here. The opportunities here.
I'd like to continue on the circular economy definition. I think it's a great question. I think that initially the term circular economy comes from this idea where you want to close the loop of a system, a very local system where you limit the inputs, limit the outputs, and you try and create circularity within the system with recycling and repurposing stuff, let's say. Um, I think it's been politicized quite a bit, and it's now fitting an agenda that is the ESG agenda, where it's like degrowth and stop
Love that.
consuming and things like that. And so Bitcoiners kind of hijacked the term and repurposed it to describe a local system like a mountain town, for example, where you're gonna use Bitcoin as a currency and create circularity by adding businesses, suppliers, and individuals using Bitcoin and keeping Bitcoin inside the local system.
And also, I want to mention about actually paying people, their wages, part of their wages in Bitcoin as well. So, the definitely the income is coming in as extra Bitcoin into the community.
And creating that usage life cycle.
Yeah.
So some people are saving a percentage, and then some people are actually circulating it around the businesses internally. We'll go to the local vegetable supplier. We'll see one of the restaurant owners there. He'll be paying for his vegetables with the Bitcoin that he got paid from us. So we're also sucking in Bitcoin from outside, and it is staying around internally, but occasionally it leaks out as well for things like rent, maybe to a landlord that's somewhere else. But yeah, I mean, I know I didn't answer your question directly about the circular economy part, but I know that Quentin's thinking about it a lot at the moment, like the technical definition. But for us, I guess we're probably a lot more focused on the social side and watching what people are actually doing as well. And all of these parts are important. All of these are good questions.
Hmm. And if I had to bring Ronnie back into the picture, so Ronnie runs the Bitcoin hardware store. I assume you sell Bitcoin hardware where people can
The best
add
of.
new supply to this circular economy, right?
Yeah, and going back to Quentin's definition, I think he's pretty spot on because with the circular economy, or when you support local businesses, let's keep it. Let's try and break it back down. You know that money that you're using and exchanging within the local businesses and the local economy, a large percentage of it is actually going to stay within the community. And so you're supporting each other when you're creating the circular economy. It just kind of flows within each other. And there is a great project here in El Zonte called the Bitcoin Farmers Market, where you see a lot of people coming in and just bringing their ideas, bringing their products. And it's honestly something where I put up my stand, teach people about the hardware that we sell, but I'm probably everybody's biggest client because I'm going out there and I'm spending from everybody, buying bread, buying food, buying meat, buying whatever it is that my peers are selling, and we're supporting each other in what we're trying to build here. So it really comes down to supporting that circle and trying to make that circle or that circularity just grow larger and larger. And so it helps the local community out, and it helps this project that we're trying to do just continue to grow. And Berlin is a perfect example of that.
Mm.
They took this idea and went with it, and I'm just seeing growth. And if it wasn't for the idea, I think of this circular economy and supporting your local businesses, then I really don't know how well this Bitcoin project would be succeeding here for the locals. The locals are seeing it. they're getting more involved. They're getting excited. They're wanting to learn more about what's happening. Why all these people coming here to El Salvador? Why are people staying here? And they're proud for once. And, I
Hmm.
want to say as a Salvadoran back in the day, being from El Salvador would have been something that people would always just assume that you were, a bad person. But now the Salvadorans are taking pride in their land, in their country, in their labor, in their fruits. And I
Hmm.
think it all comes together with just using, that term circular economy. You support local, it stays local, and you continue to build as a community.
Awesome. I want
The
to.
oh,
I see Herbert nodding. I'll give him a second. Then I want to get Ladislas back in the picture after. So Herbert, you're resonating with a lot of this.
Yeah, absolutely. What Ronnie was saying, that Salvadorans now take pride in what they're doing and their background and their heritage, is very true. Because for a very long time, many people in the past were even ashamed of calling themselves Salvadorans, because we were labeled, as I mentioned before, as one of the most dangerous countries, a country that had gotten out of an unnecessary civil war, a country that was divided by politics, a country that suffered high crime and low probability of being able to thrive as a human being living here. And now President Bukele has managed, with the help of God, I believe, to turn all of this around, and we're starting a new chapter. It's a fresh start for every Salvadoran, not only for the new generations, but also for previous generations who suffered very much under the old systems. And now everyone's being able to embrace new opportunities in one way or another. And I think that's not only inspiring, but it should really make politicians from other nations take note, because the people,
Hmm.
when it comes to the people of the world, this is what they want. They want freedom, they want security, and the opportunity to grow as honest, hardworking individuals.
Hmm.
It's not a difficult formula, but many nations, for some reason, get caught up in establishment politics, and they don't allow their citizens to have any of it. So, what's the point of even being in those nations? And that is why many people are coming to El Salvador as a sort of refuge, you could say. It's crazy to think that what used to be one of the most dangerous countries is now a refuge for people from the first world.
Definitely ironic. I want to get Ladislas involved. We'll close the loop on the circular economy, and then maybe Ladislas, you can also speak to the more macro notes that Herbert was touching upon. How was your experience? Were you using your Amex Platinum with the VIP lounge access, or were you trying to use your Bitcoin? I know you accept crypto for some of your stuff. What was your experience in El Salvador as someone from outside the circular economy jumping in, maybe with crypto to spend or
I don't use my crypto. I keep it. I hoard it. So I'm not very good for the circular economy. So
so
I didn't have
Amex
much
Platinum
crypto.
all the way?
I didn't spend any of my crypto there. No.
Hopefully you got some more though.
This is where it gets interesting. If you decide to live in El Salvador, you can live on a Bitcoin standard. So you could earn in Bitcoin, and you could save in Bitcoin, and you could spend in Bitcoin. And this is where the future is at. And El Salvador is just one step ahead.
and I'm
So,
just sorry
could we
on
talk
the
about
circular economy
cost of
side.
living? Because we were talking about like the market and the prices and this stuff a little bit. We've talked a little bit about um, real estate. I thought maybe cost of living people would probably want to know. Obviously, it's going to differ in Bitcoin Beach, where Ronnie is, versus in San Salvador, where Herbert is, versus in Berlin, where you guys are. Maybe we could go around and just give us like a rough idea of how much you're spending in USD, or I guess in Sats. But maybe we'll start with the Berlin guys. I mean, what does it cost if someone wants to move to Berlin and hang out with you guys? How much are they spending per month?
I mean, we easily halved our expenses from the beach to here. So now, I mean, you can get rent from if you want to go the lower end, $250 a month, up to around $500 a month, and then. But of course, that's always going to vary in terms of what you're going to get. The houses are very modest here. The homes are very modest, and your appliances and furniture can also be a bit challenging. And then your living expenses in terms of food, it's significantly better here. It's a better price point for us up here than it was down at the beach. We feel like we're getting the same quality up here for half the price. And then our living expense in terms of electricity, internet, water is relatively low. I mean, you're looking at $20 a month for power at the moment, $30 a month for internet, and $3 I think for water or something.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's actually pretty cheap to live here in Berlin.
That sounded like less than $1,000 a month for
Oh
maybe
yeah,
renting
Yeah.
like
Yep.
a full
I
house,
just
like a
I just
three
looked through my
bedroom modest
numbers,
house.
and I can live comfortably here without any added extras for about 600 to 700 a month, and I'm eating very well. That's not buying any extra, furniture or anything like that, but yeah, 600 a month. I'm living middle class like I was in Canada.
Yeah, I want to say that I had this conversation today. I have this conversation quite often with people. And the thing is, there's a lifestyle for you, and everybody's lifestyle is a little different. But if you're willing to live a very natural, I want to say, or a very local lifestyle, um, like Pierre said, $700 a month sounds like right on budget. You can get your necessities. You're going to be completely happy. And then you got someone like me who grew up in Toronto. I have a couple of lifestyle choices that unfortunately I don't want to give up. And so I'm roughly spending about $1,500 a month paying for rent and my going out. El Zonte, the Surf City area is pretty lively, so you can find yourself going out quite often. And so, it depends. And what I told somebody today is if you want luxury, you're going to get luxury in El Salvador and you're going to pay luxury prices. So expect that. It's not the cheapest place in the world to live. You want cheap, then you're going to have to make some sacrifices and, live a very basic lifestyle. But everything is available for you, which I think is fantastic. Whereas you're living in a first world country, just to just to barely get by, you're paying an arm and a leg. So I think you can come here with really any sort of budget, and you can find something if you're willing to sacrifice a little bit and just live like a local.
If I may jump in there, I think one of the core issues that El Salvador has currently is the dollarization of its economy. So it may seem like, oh, sure, it makes it easier to invest and to travel. But fundamentally, as long as El Salvador will not have its own currency, El Salvador will not be sovereign to the point, to the extent that it wants to be. So that's one. When you don't control your currency, someone else can control you a lot easier. So that's one. And two, whenever a country has full on dollarization like El Salvador, it results in essentially the interest rate policies of the country being decided elsewhere for someone else. So a an interest rate policy that may be appropriate for the United States in its current stage of development and its current economic cycle is probably not the right interest rate policy and exchange rate for El Salvador. So when you look at El Salvador versus some other neighbors around, it's actually more expensive. You compare it to Nicaragua, I'd say things are 30% more expensive, 40% more expensive than in Nicaragua.
But maybe cheaper than Costa Rica.
Costa Rica, yeah, Costa Rica. I mean, Costa Rica is at a completely different stage of development, but yeah, for sure, cheaper than Costa Rica. Um, but Nicaragua is substantially more affordable, but nevertheless has better infrastructure, a lot of better things going on. El Salvador is more in its infancy in terms of development, and so I'd say that the cost of living, if you're looking purely at cost of living, El Salvador, compared to some of its neighbors, is not competitive due to the dollarized nature of the economy. But overall, it's still affordable coming from North America or Europe for sure.
I want to say
Ronnie?
just one thing. I agree totally with what the wandering investor is saying. Actually, every point is considering the fact that we don't have our own currency. But the answer for me and uh, Bitcoin has actually made my life 50% cheaper this year. And Bitcoin is El Salvador's national currency as well. So we can't forget that aspect. That is part of the equation that we're trying to solve here. So if you live on this Bitcoin standard, like Quentin had mentioned, life has actually gotten cheaper. And so that's
Correct.
yeah.
And it's
Herbert?
very important to mention another thing, that it is competitive in one sense, that El Salvador offers security, which neighboring countries probably don't.
Mm.
And this doesn't apply to everyone, but it's
Hey guys, quick break from the podcast to tell you about job stacking. If you're a remote or hybrid worker looking to maximize your earning potential, then Rolf Haltza, author of Job Stacking, guarantees you'll be able to double your income by implementing his paycheck multiplication layering method. This is the exact system Rolf has used to take his own income and those of many others beyond $20K a month. With this method, Rolf contractually guarantees that you'll be able to double your income in 45 days. So, if you're interested in unleashing your earning potential and doubling your income, then click the link in the description and book a call with Rolf right now. Hey guys, quick break from the episode to tell you about BitRefill. BitRefill allows you to shop online and in person without banks, converting your crypto directly into merchant balance. We're talking gift cards to Nike, Amazon, Apple, Airbnb, Hotels.com, and many more, all paid for with crypto. BitRefill offers more than 10,000 gift card options in 180 countries all across Latin America, including Brazil, Colombia, Mexico, Argentina, El Salvador, and many more. You can also apply the code MyLatinLife at checkout to get 10% back on your first purchase. Go to bitrefill.com for more information.
worth taking into account that right now El Salvador, I'd say, is by far the safest country in Central America. Therefore, that is something, in my opinion, that is worth the price difference. And and as they were mentioning before, as Ronnie was mentioning, and the Bitcoin City team over in Berlin, it all depends also on your lifestyle choices. Because, for example, if you want to live in the city of El Salvador, uh, a similar lifestyle to what you live in Canada or the United States, sure, you're going to be paying a little bit more than if you go to Berlin. However, it's still going to be probably two or even three times cheaper than it is in Canada or the United States. So at the end of the day, you're still saving money.
Yeah.
Hmm.
If I can jump about Bitcoin, right? So we discussed Bitcoin from a circular economy point of view, Bitcoin from a sovereignty point of view. But when you look at the composition of the GDP of El Salvador, I think it's 23 or 27% is remittances. And historically, all of these remittances were being sent through, I don't know, Western Union or banks, et cetera, from the US down to El Salvador. And middlemen were just raking in fees. I mean, just ask any, I mean, Ronnie, I'm sure when you were living back in the States, your family would send money back to the family. You guys would get ripped off, or the family on arrival would get ripped off when they'd be trying to take their dollars. You'd lose many percentage points in the process. And allowing Bitcoin as a national currency has resulted essentially in all of these middlemen being cut out. And that's the most brilliant move by Bukele. So one is the free PR that it gave, which is worth
It's
dozens
way
of millions of dollars for El Salvador. That's one point. The second point is cutting out the middleman for all of these remittances that now really go fully. You send $100, essentially your family gets 99, right? So you'll to get the $100, you'll pay $100.50, and your family will get 99.5, right? So there's just 1% in between, with 0.5 actually being taken by the government and their Bitcoin machines. So that's fantastic. That is all extra money that was taken away from middlemen in the United States, middlemen in El Salvador that were not particularly helpful for the economy, going straight into the pockets of families that are then going into the economy. So it's all these little moves that the government has made that aren't necessarily, people just think, oh, I can pay with Bitcoin, it's cool, but it's about more than that. It's about all the people you're cutting out. It's about the free PR. It's about all of that. So I find it brilliant from a strategic point of view.
I think the next step here is a few people I've spoken to, and they talk about their family sending money. You see here in the banks lineups of people waiting to get their Western Union and stuff. It's still going on. And I really think that what we're building here could have some sort of a mirror in the US with all of those workers. There needs to be a movement, an education movement with the workers, because there are millions of them, literally. And some maybe don't know much about it, or they're afraid of it, or whatever. So I think that's the next step in a way, sort of to sort of, I guess, decentralize this even more and reach those workers,
And
because
it'll
there's
be easier to educate those workers in the
yeah,
US than the people in El Salvador. Because when you tell the people in El Salvador, oh, like that's how you're getting your money, they'll just take it the way it is, right? It's
yeah.
easier to so, so it's
But
easier to do the education there, probably.
yeah, we're actually getting people come into the Bitcoin Centre now asking, how do we get remittances sent to us through Bitcoin?
Nice.
Which is amazing. So we're getting people. We've created an incredible centre here, and people are feeling really free now. Salvadorans are feeling quite comfortable to walk in and ask questions, which is really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Herbert, we didn't get to. I'm not letting you off so easy. How much do you spend per month?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, it all depends on your lifestyles, but um, I spend about, I'd say in the 1,200, 1,500 range, just like Ronnie, but due to personal choices, not because it's a necessity.
He's a
It's mostly
politician,
because,
double the amount.
no. I'm not a politician. I only ran for office and I didn't get in there, so I don't count as a politician. But around there, Vance, because look, as I in when I was living in Miami Beach a few years back, I was paying three times, four times the amount of
Hmm.
money that I am paying now to live how I live in El Salvador. And I will tell you that this includes not just rent, it includes monthly groceries, it includes phone bill, it includes everything that I need. So, honestly speaking, I think that you can live a much more comfortable life in El Salvador for a short percentage of what you're probably paying in any other country.
One thing to note as well is a lot of the expats are remote workers. About more than, well, yeah, a lot of my income comes from clients in the States and Canada. And that's also sort of a different kind of infusion into the circular economy. It's sort of an input that's similar to the remittances, right? So what's interesting is earning in my home currency, Canadian dollar, US dollar, then living here. So that's giving me an opportunity to obviously to stack sats, but also to spend a little bit more on different things. Whereas back home, I would be really close. Sometimes I'd really have to hustle just to get ahead, to save, like, to put $500 away in a month was like really hard. So that having that perspective, when you arrive here, you're working remotely, and then what instantly happens is, because of the energy of the hustle here that is in the culture, where everyone is either selling something or working on something, it's really contagious. And we're in this little nonprofit center, but it's the most entrepreneurial nonprofit I've ever been in. Everyone's got starting something, or finding ways to build on their remote income. So I'm kind of seeing I'm going to have a fork soon, probably in a few months, where I'm going to get rid of a couple of clients. I don't have to do all these Zoom calls, and I can just work here. And I may not have my income might not be as high, but the lifestyle is much better for me, and I work less, and it's way more fun. So
Yes.
so the remote working dollars coming in, that infusion is a really good sort of sort of foundation for people, and then
Correct.
eventually
And I'd like to add that expats such as yourselves that are coming to El Salvador, there's something really great that I've noticed from personal perspective, and it's that everyone has this desire to also help. Like most people aren't just coming here for themselves. Obviously, there's some benefits. Otherwise, people wouldn't be coming. You have freedom here. You pay less money, et cetera, et cetera. But everyone wants to. That I see this sentiment across the expat community where people want to kind of give back to El Salvador, and that is very good. That is very healthy. I applaud it, and I think it's very good. Like for example, you guys have you call yourselves the Bitcoin City team. You're helping educate Bitcoin. You're helping get the ball rolling even faster than it is. And I think that's also very important for El Salvador, that the people that come here come with the idea, not to benefit themselves, but to benefit the community, the nation, the people. And that's what I see. I see this strong spirit to help from everyone that's coming to El Salvador. And we really appreciate that in this country.
A lot of people talk about Bitcoin being hope, and I think El Salvador takes it to a new level where it's more than hope. You come here and you live and take action into the opportunity. Just it's opportunity.
Mm.
Just do it.
And I have an anecdotal
Yeah.
experience. I was
Um,
just I was just in Honduras, and I was spending some money, and I was surprised as to how expensive things were, because I was paying pretty much the same that I was paying here in El Salvador, and I'd heard Honduras was supposed to be cheaper. Same with Guatemala, and so what do I do? They have their own currencies, so I'm very curious. So I check what their currency devaluation was against the U.S. dollar, and these currencies are devaluating a lot faster than the U.S. dollar is. And so, even though these places like Nicaragua, Guatemala, Honduras might have been cheaper at one point, I think that trend is actually going to change because of the decisions that the Bukele government has made in terms of
What
adding.
you say is quite interesting, and I might add uh, that we have a master chess player in government. Like, if President Bukele does something or doesn't do something, it is for the well being of the country. Maybe you can't see it immediately, but you do see it in the long run. And I'm confident that El Salvador is on the path to growth and to development and to setting a great example for many nations. And I'm really happy that we all get to witness. Everyone is witnessing in their own perspective in their own ways, but I'm really happy that we all get to witness this special moment in time because it's very rare for a nation to have the kind of turnaround that we're seeing in a country such as El Salvador. It's rare. You don't see it every so often, It's a very rare occurrence.
So, Herbert, just a question for you in terms of I see one of the biggest challenges that El Salvador has is education. Effectively, people lived for, I don't know, 20 years under lockdown. When there was the Civil War, and then there was all the gang violence, people couldn't, move around that much. So people were very kind of sheltered in their own communities, in their own space. Um, the school system was extremely bad. So, as an investor, I see all the potential for growth. I see all the reforms. I see everything. My biggest worry, if I were to start a business in El Salvador, depending on the type of business, is having access to quality human capital because of this deficit of education over the past decades. So, what's
Yes,
the
I
government's
understand.
policy to address this?
Right now the government is focusing not just on the economy, but also on creating better educational opportunities for our citizens. As you know, President Bukele announced that they're going to restore, remodel, and even reconstruct hundreds of the schools nationwide. Kids are being given new opportunities to develop, not just kids, but also teenagers, young adults, even the elderly to develop skills which they didn't have access to developing in the past. Not just because of the situation, but because the governments of the past just simply didn't care about providing these opportunities for their citizens. President Bukele's government is well aware that one of the main human rights is education. And there is a very strong focus right now on giving these opportunities that were never given to the people before. El Salvador has great talent in many fields, in many industries. All they require is a platform, which they never had. And now we are on the verge of giving them this platform for them to develop and grow as human beings, as human intellectuals. Something worth taking into account is that, as you mentioned, people were basically locked down by many societal problems like the Civil War, the gangs, the crime, and it was for over 20 years. It was for over 30, I'd say. And it will take time to get to a point where you're going to have the same human capital that you have in a city like San Francisco, for example. Of course, it'll take time. Everything does. But we will get there because we are working, and when there, and if anyone, President Bukele has proven that where there is a will, there is a way, and that is the path that we're on right now.
And even though Bukele is also providing all of these opportunities right now, I mean, here in Berlin, we have people coming from the United States who are bringing their skills in terms of and liquidity to fund people here, literally in Berlin, and train them for jobs in the United States. There is money and skill education coming in to do that right now, and we've been talking to this gentleman, and he has inspired other people in the States who are seeing what he's doing. They are coming. The education is coming. The opportunity is coming.
And the recent announcement of the 5,000 passports for professionals, I just read yesterday that there are 400 applicants already
Wow.
in 24 hours. So, yeah. So that's almost 10% just from the first day.
Wow.
So that's going to be an influx of. I have some friends back in Canada who are, I know one architect and one nuclear engineer or energy quality manager engineer, and they are building. They're both building lists of what's going to be built next, what companies are going in there. So they're one's divorced, one's single. So they're like, I'm going down there. It's much better than coming to Canada, working in Canada. So if you extrapolate that between Canada, the U.S., Europe, lots of young single people with professional training want an adventure, and a young nurse coming here, maybe their income will be a little bit less, but they'll have a different life than in Canada in the $2,800 basement apartment. So that's also going to be part of the education, and those people are going to be teaching in the colleges. 10 years from now, we're going to see all those premier Bitcoin kids getting computer engineering degrees, and it's just going to be flipped. It's going to be really something. And Google's here already, right? So and also there's a lot of people from other Latin American countries. That family we met 2 weeks ago from Costa Rica, they're moving here.
She's one's a doctor and one's a lawyer.
Yeah,
coming in.
We've met a lot of
The wheels are set in motion. It's happening.
yes, but once a week someone comes through here from Spain, Canada, the US, and Germany, and they're all making plans. Some of them want to live actually here, and some of them want to live in the country. So, and they've all got skills. So those, I think that's going to be probably, I would say, under a generation, it'll be flipped. I would say.
And the disillusioned Salvadorans that are living abroad is disillusioned from where they're living, similar to my state. I get messages all the time from people who are friends of mine from Canada, who are Salvadoran, younger than me, who I grew up with, and they're seeing, because the best way to vote is to take action, to move with your feet. So they've seen what's happening. They ask me if it's true. I say yes. If you want to build, this is the place. Come back home. And so that's happening quite a lot too. So just like Pierre said, I give it. It takes time. We all want results tomorrow, but I see that El Salvador in the next 10 years. I can't wait. I'm excited, and I just hope to be a part of it.
Yeah, the real votes that count are not red and blue. The real votes that count are your time and your money.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what's interesting as well is that a lot of these initiatives, so, for example, all the schools, etc., a lot of it is actually self-financed by the government. It's not like the government is issuing a ton of debt to get there. Just the clampdown on corruption alone is freeing so much capital. So if before there
Yeah.
was a tender to build a, I don't know, $50 million road, potentially 30 million of that would have ended up in Panama and Miami real estate, with just 20 million being built. But now, like 50 million means 50 million. So just that in itself is a huge boon for the economy that the GDP figures don't really capture, because according to GDP, well, 50 million of road got built, but it didn't. But now it actually gets built. So the economy is probably growing faster actually than the figures would show.
Absolutely. I agree.
People talk a lot here. I find in casual conversations, they'll they'll be going, "Did you see that new road they just built? It's amazing!" So we can't relate because we weren't here before. But people who've been here longer, they're noticing changes when they travel around. So it's kind of fun to hear.
And even for us, like after being here for a year, maybe a year and a half, like we're already seeing changes. Like for example, there's a place called Punta Mango, which was completely virgin. Like the road to go there was a dirt road, and so the first time I went, I couldn't even go there because of the fact it was a dirt road and it was the rainy season. And now you go back and it's like it's a big road, like a massive asphalt road with bridges and everything, and this is happening all around the country. And this is just great to see the infrastructure being built. And I would like to highlight that it's all about direction. And El Salvador is a tiny country, and this is why I think the land is going up in value as well. Is it's going from the bottom, and it's rising at a speed that is very very something to see. And both investments from foreign countries, but also even Salvadorians that left to go to the US or Canada, are actually coming back to the country now. So maybe the remittances will go down because they'll invest the money directly in the country. And this is what we're witnessing here in Berlin, especially. Like you can see houses being built everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And this is that the education as well. It's just great if you approach the education from the Bitcoin lens. uh, there is something that is unique in the world. I work for My First Bitcoin, the nonprofit that provides Bitcoin education in El Salvador and all around the world through open source education. And we now teach the teachers of the public school system, that in turn go to their schools and teach their own students about Bitcoin. So earlier I was mentioning that El Salvador was a step ahead. It's actually two steps ahead, because it's building the infrastructure for the country, and it's also building education for the students for the future.
That is very true what you're saying. Very true. Yeah, I've seen the work that Mi Primera Bitcoin has been doing in El Salvador, and truly, they've really gone all in, and they've done great work here. That's very true.
For people who don't know, what is Mi Primer Bitcoin?
So, Mi Primer Bitcoin is a nonprofit organization that started providing Bitcoin education in El Salvador, and its mantra is El Salvador is the focus, the world is the mission. The mission is the world. And so the idea is to make of El Salvador an amazing example of what's possible with Bitcoin education and replicate this success all around the world. So we started giving classes to students here in El Salvador. Anyone that was interested in Bitcoin was welcome to assist to the classes. And for that, we created an open source curriculum that we released as something that was free for anyone to use. And so we saw all these communities pop up all around the world, providing free and open source Bitcoin education to their local community. And so we decided to create this initiative that is called the Node Network, where it's a community of Bitcoin communities where we all learn from each other, providing Bitcoin education and learning from each other, sharing best practices, and just speeding up the timeline of Bitcoin adoption.
And by the way, I think you left out one important thing. Mi primer Bitcoin translates to my first Bitcoin. There.
Right.
You're
Thank you.
welcome.
And if you haven't already, everybody should go on their Twitter and just watch the graduation videos of their kids. It's awesome to see. It's like 100
Yes.
kids, teenagers, and they do this whole ceremony, and it's really, really beautiful to see. And then you watch the other videos where they're being tested by volunteer Bitcoiners. It's really cool. So it's quite a movement.
That's how we discovered Berlin.
Oh, yeah.
We came up for the graduation. Yeah,
Mhm.
it was really
Okay.
amazing. Mm.
Yeah, Berlin was actually it was a place where we organized a graduation. Gerardo and Evelyn were two teachers of my first Bitcoin, and they decided to focus on Berlin and build a circular economy there. And so
Mm.
they were the ones starting this project here in this mountain town.
Can you repeat that? So how did it was that's how Berlin started?
Mhm.
Really?
Yeah, the Bitcoin Berlin project
Mm.
started after Gerardo and Evelyn were two teachers at Mi Primer Bitcoin. And after the graduation, they decided to stay in this town to start a focused
Mm,
project on the town. Whereas Mi Primer Bitcoin focuses on Bitcoin education, they really focused on Bitcoin adoption in this particular town with a circular economy project.
Mm.
okay.
But what's
I have
quite
a
amazing
question.
is it's
Go,
actually,
no, go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
oh, I was
Go
going to
ahead.
say
Sorry.
what's amazing is there's two Salvadorians who have started the project, not foreigners coming in or foreign money coming in. It's actually been very much grassroots, which has been awesome.
That's cool.
That's a really really great thing about this Bitcoin Center as well. Is it's our Monday night meetups are in Spanish, and we're very integrated in the community. I have lots of friends now who are local dudes, running businesses and doing some things and laughing at my Spanish. So it's not like we've sort of landed here and we have our little echo chamber. We're very very integrated, and we work on that a lot. It's great. It's fun to share ideas about food and language and music. We're always fighting over music. That's kind of the one sort of conflict I would say at parties. Uh,
What, you don't like reggaeton?
they don't. Yeah, they don't like our music generally. So, but I think the rule is becoming whoever hosts the party gets to decide. So,
Sounds good. Fair enough.
So you mentioned meetups. I kind of wanted for the audience to get an idea of, because people are in different places, how the, I guess you could say, Bitcoin community or expat community is spread out. So obviously you have people in San Salvador, you have people in Berlin, you have people down at the beach at Bitcoin Beach and El Zonte and so forth. What's kind of the split? Do you have, if you had to put like percentages on it in terms of, I know it's kind of two different things, Bitcoiners and expats, but like, is it 50% in the beach, 25% San Salvador, 25% Berlin, or what's kind of the breakdown in your guys' view?
Yeah, we up in Berlin we have maybe 15 foreigners here. I would say after 18 months down at the beach in La Libertad is would have a big
hundreds, right?
yeah a big population. San Salvador is definitely when people get tired of the heat of the beach, we'll go up to San Salvador, and then Santa Ana too. There's definitely more people moving in that direction.
Yeah, the expat community. I wasn't actually a Bitcoiner when I moved to El Salvador. I just wanted to leave Canada. Plus, being here in El Zonte, Surf City, El Tunco, I met a lot of expats. I'd say a large portion of them live down here. And for me, it was easy being of Salvadoran origin, but also being from Canada. So it was the perfect mix for me down here, being able to speak English and speak Spanish. And so and the day I became a Bitcoiner was actually, the same day that El Salvador made legal tender here in El Salvador. I'd say September 7th, 2021 was the day that I became a Bitcoiner. So I moved here before then. So it was that expat community that drove me to stay on the beach, and I love it.
Herbert, what's your view from San Salvador? Like, do you go down to the beach a lot for meetings and so forth, or what? How do you see the split?
I think what you suggested sounds quite right. I'd say not exactly 100% accurate, but I'd say it sounds quite right. You know, the Bitcoiners here in El Salvador, I'd say that the main base would be the beach area, definitely like El Zonte and all that, because that's where it all started. But as the Bitcoin City team mentioned, it's quickly evolving. It's spreading out to other areas like Berlin, Santa Ana, obviously San Salvador. And I think we're seeing a positive growth in the community. As soon as we know it, it'll be far more prominent. I'm not saying it isn't at the moment. It is. However, I see it growing a lot more. I see its future potential, and it, as I said before, the wheels are in motion, and El Salvador is just a tiny bit away, a tiny small frame away from developing its maximum potential. And I'm very excited to see it.
Mm.
And while I'm at it, I'd like to ask the interviewer a question. So, you, Vance, I wanted to ask, I assume you've been to El Salvador before, right?
I have not.
You have not. And, well, when are you coming? We want to see you here. We want to come show you. Yeah.
Well, I can tell you that the value prop sounds a lot better than Mexico. It sounds like a lower cost of living and a lot more dynamic in terms of the energy of the people.
When it comes to El Salvador, I've always thought to myself that it's not a project, a vision that you have to sell to people through media or whatever. I think it's something that sells itself once you come and see it for yourself and you become convinced. Otherwise, you wouldn't have. Look, if what's happening in El Salvador weren't as solid as we're saying it is, people wouldn't be moving here. People are abandoning their lives in first world nations to come to El Salvador. If that doesn't tell you something, I don't know what will. I think it's very promising. I think that we have a bright future ahead. We have very good people. The Salvadoran people are some of the best, I believe. And I'm not saying that because I'm Salvadoran. I'm saying it because I've witnessed it. Many people, expats, foreigners that come here, they agree with this sentiment. Very friendly, hardworking, honest people, and it's truly a blessing that they have been liberated from times past where they were oppressed by crime. Because the average Salvadoran, I've said it on other interviews, and I'll say it here, that the average Salvadoran couldn't live back in the day a normal life. They couldn't send their kids to school or open a little business at home or do anything because they'd get harassed by gang members, possibly murdered. Now that's been taken away, and by taking away the crime, you have a whole land of opportunity. And great things are on the verge of happening here. And I can't wait to see El Salvador as little as 5 years from now, let alone
Yeah,
10 years from now.
if I may, I think the safety is so fundamental because the whole problem with places like Mexico and Colombia and Brazil is it's not that you want to flaunt your wealth, but you can't
Mhm.
be open about success really because it can lead to like kidnapping, extortion, or just people trying to like borrow money from you. And I think what's cool about a place like El Salvador is it seems like you can be a little bit more open about success. And I think it's really important for people to be able to have that information sharing and being able to be open about bouncing ideas and being able to talk about investing in one another. And you can't really do that in Mexico or Colombia freely. Like there was this thing on Twitter, this comes up every once in a while, but there was this one, for example, where it was like, millionaire meetup Medellin. You can only come if you're a millionaire. And all the comments are like,
Okay.
dude, you guys are putting a target on your back. You can't just walk around Medellin saying you're a millionaire type of thing. And that's what I'm saying is like you should be able to do that in a a high trust society, and hopefully we can have millionaire meetups in El Salvador.
Let's
I'll give,
organize one.
I'll give you a little. I'll give you a little story. Actually, just last night, I was here working late. I walked home about 11 o'clock, and it was the city. The town is very quiet at night, obviously, and I live at the top of a very steep hill, and it's pretty brutal. Some nights. And a guy came by on his motorbike. He was going up the hill, and he stopped, and he just offered me a ride up the hill. So I got on his bike, and we bumped up the hill, got to my house, and we chatted for a minute or two. He asked me where I was from. I gave him a thing of water, and he said, "It's really cool to see you gringos walking around at night." And that's what he said. It was a joke, like you know.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
so I thought that was kind of cool because I was just telling some friends of mine uh, in a chat today about it. I said it's that when I first arrived here, I may have been apprehensive. I was like, what does this guy want? But I kind of recognized him, but he recognized me clearly from the neighborhood, and it was just immediate. Oh, sure, I'll take a ride with you. And that was 11 at night. So that's just an example, and I'm male and everything. So it's maybe for a woman, it might be slightly different. Although I've heard stories that are similar stories with Kitty getting rides from guys all the time going
Yeah.
home, and it's
Yeah.
perfectly, safe and trustworthy. So that's just one little example, I think, of how it's different here now.
Yeah.
Yes.
I sleep the door open. My house is open 24/7.
Do you have a
It's
choice?
yeah, it's so safe. It's just crazy. I went back to France 2 months ago after 2 years in Central America, and France is different. I mean, you go at the train station and you see these people that look at you in a very weird way, and you feel uncomfortable because it's unsafe. First world countries have become unsafe, whereas El Salvador is very, very safe. Even in
I
Mexico, when I went back to Mexico, my girlfriend, who's Mexican, at some point we were shopping in a supermarket, and I left my wallet in the thing
Trolley.
in the trolley, and she told me, "This is not El Salvador. You put it in your pocket." So that was funny. So yeah,
yeah.
just again, it's so safe. You can't really understand it until you come to see it for yourself.
And I just want to add, for someone like myself who has been here before and after Bukele, it's really heartwarming to hear these experiences because believe me, before President Bukele, El Salvador was not like this. The change has been as drastic and as positive as it sounds. El Salvador was not the country that we have today. El Salvador has completely evolved into a better version of itself ever since President Bukele took office. He's done a great job, really.
Yeah,
And it
and
makes me happy to hear these experiences from you guys.
on a personal note, I gotta say the upside is so large that I really think Salvadorans and the regular people don't want to miss out by doing some petty crime. I don't think anybody really wants to miss out on what El Salvador has potential to become by doing something very short sighted, and that's from a personal as well.
Or by
There's
selling
a lot
their
to it.
or by selling their real estate too cheap to foreigners, apparently.
They see Ladislas coming, they're like, this guy's a shark, bro. I would love to just hear more random anecdotes about people's friendliness or the family friendliness, or really any kind of good stories that you guys typically tell at cocktail parties.
Uh, I have one from yesterday. Actually, my neighbor, she's a lady. She's my landlord as well. I mean, she's my landlord's mother, and she came to me and she said, "So you haven't taken out the trash for a few weeks because the trash truck comes at 5 a.m. and I'm never awake at this time. So I just wait for at some point I'm gonna." Make it and wake up at 5 a.m. And so she came to me and she said, "Do you want me to take the trash out for you? I wake up at 5 a.m. for the truck, so I can do it for you." And I was like, "No way, thank you." I really appreciate it. And so I woke up at uh, 5 a.m. and I took the trash out.
Yeah, that shows the Salvadoran hospitality. I mean, people here are really nice, and there's a very strong, as I mentioned earlier during this podcast, a very strong community environment, and that right there is it. You know, like if you can't do it, I'll help you do it. If you can't get there, I'll give you a ride. If you need a bite to eat, I'll give you a bite to eat. You know, like that's the spirit of the Salvadoran people, despite being a nation that suffered very much and that had to deal with a lot of poverty. The hearts of the Salvadorans are definitely worth gold, in my opinion, and that's something that should be cherished and protected at all costs.
The small business owners here in Berlin, like this town, I think it's big enough to have a number of services, and it's small enough that it doesn't have any of the big chains. And
Hmm.
that small to medium business owner mentality, lifestyle, the
Yo,
access
Ladislas,
to
could
owner
you mute
operators.
yourself?
Oh, sorry, was that me? Oh,
No, I think that was Ladislas. Sorry,
no.
keep going, James.
Sorry. So the small to medium business owner lifestyle, mentality, just the way people interact, and ownership of like responsibility, because you know that your reputation's on the line when you have an interaction with somebody. So we've really enjoyed that about being here in Berlin. It's been very different.
I gotta add that my favorite Salvadoran cultural event, and I recommend everybody come to visit for it, not only just Christmas and New Year's, but Herbert might know, it's El Toro Pinto, and it's this
Oh yeah,
festival.
that's fun.
It is absolutely the best thing. I go to it as often as I can. And it's essentially like, I want to call it a Salvadoran version of the running of the bulls, but there's no bulls. They make these little bulls out of paper
Like
mache
piñatas.
and they put fireworks on them and they go up and down the street shooting fireworks at people. It is the most Salvadoran
I love
thing,
their
and
fireworks.
it's absolutely fantastic. I love it. And if you want to come, then just shoot me a message and I'll show you around, man.
Is that a specific time of the year?
It's December, right after Christmas, right before
Mm.
New Year in Antigua Cuscatlan is typically where I go. I don't know if they celebrate it in other places, but it's usually like, I want to say December 27th, 28th. Maybe Herbert has a better
You
date.
know, and something worth mentioning too is that Christmas and New Year's are very unique in El Salvador. I mean, during the month of December in El Salvador, everywhere there's a fireworks show, a fireworks display, beautiful events. Like you even have like Christmas street parades and everything, and it actually feels more like Christmas here than it did but back when I was living in Miami, and then that was very exciting for me when I was still a teenager and I had like my first proper experiences in El Salvador. I think it's a very unique country, very friendly. The culture here, as I mentioned before, is amazing, and truly, I want to finish up saying that if you're listening to this, you're living abroad, and you want to come and see for yourselves, don't think twice about it. Book that flight, book that Airbnb, and come to El Salvador, experience it yourselves, and you'll see the what we're talking it's not just to make the country sound nice. What we're talking about is actually a reality that you yourself can come experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's something that you need to come and experience. Like anybody can come here, and it's not for everyone. But the when you come here, and if you're a person that's seeking to build something and opportunity, and you want to change in your life, and you want to work with good people,
Mhm.
yeah, there's a good chance you want to stick around.
Yeah.
Okay. And just from a pure logistics perspective, someone made it 90 minutes into the podcast. They're like, okay, I'm down. I'm doing it. I'm coming to El Salvador. I'm flying into San Salvador International Airport, I guess it's called. Where should they go? Should they go down to the beach? Should they go to San Salvador? They want to get a 1 month Airbnb, probably, or I don't know,
Start
maybe
with
that's not.
Berlin.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Start
Come
with Berlin.
straight
It
to
all
Bitcoin City.
it all depends on what exactly the plan is. I mean, are you bringing your family? Are you coming on
Mhm.
your own? But what I suggest to most of my friends when they visit El Salvador is spend a few days in the city and spend a few days at the beach. That and explore. That don't schedule everything. You know, just schedule a few days in the city, a few days in the beach, and give some room as well for random adventures that you might find yourself in while while you're here.
Yeah,
And I would
absolutely, and give yourself time. I think
yeah.
that's the biggest thing.
Yeah.
People come for only for a short time, and it's like they end up actually extending their trips because they didn't realize there's
Yes.
so much to see
Yeah.
and do. Yeah,
I've never seen people extend their trips like I have
yeah.
here in El Salvador. So many people are like, I've stayed an extra week or an extra month in some cases.
Or I've moved here.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
I've never come back.
yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
great
Hey,
question.
at the end of the day, that ends up being the outcome. All right, you all
Mm.
end up moving here. That's something worth mentioning as well. If you come on
Uh-huh.
a vacation, get ready to move here because you might as well end up doing it.
I
A
would
lot of
say
people do.
I would say that when you arrive, if you can be in San Salvador on Sunday afternoon in the main historic area,
Mm,
it's really something to experience. So there's
yes.
the new library. This was my first day. I got here on a Saturday. I ended up in that square at 8 a.m. to meet Albert and Karen.
Mhm.
So the
Mhm.
library, lineups of kids to get in. The square slowly comes to life, and then around, then there's the cathedral and the other church, and then as those people pour out, the other square, which is sort of adjacent a block away, has 1,000 people just hanging out dancing all day long. It was just mind blowing how amazing that was. I just sat there all day long, taking video, just looking at this, like, where am I? This is amazing. And
But
then
did you dance though?
I did actually, and I was in the wrong little area because the people that pulled me in to dance were a little, a little intense, shall we say. Um, so it was fun, but I had to sneak away because,
Yes.
drunken
So
grandmothers
that
are only fun for a short time. It was a blast. But what I would say is, after a while, you get comfortable, you sort of loosen up and dance and everything, and then people start to say, "Well, this didn't really happen here 5 years ago." So we're dancing because for with reason. It's not just a pastime. So that was really cool. So Sundays in the capital, absolutely a must.
Yeah. And if you are a Bitcoiner incoming, you can't miss the Bitcoin Farmers Market.
Mm.
And that's every second Sunday down in El Zonte. I think it's one of the most casual, most fun Bitcoin meetups that there are in El Salvador. And every week there's someone different that's turning up. There's new visitors,
Awesome.
there's new store holders, it is really good. And we've now got
And
one up in
something.
Berlin. Mm,
Go
sorry.
ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I was just saying we now are doing a Bitcoin Farmers Market once a month up in Berlin. We had our first one last Sunday, and we'll be holding those. Yeah, it's just a great place to meet up.
Awesome. I'd like to come visit one day. You know,
Sure.
something very important worth mentioning about El Salvador as well is that if you stay in San Salvador, everything's relatively close by. I mean, if you want
Mhm.
to hit up Surf City, go to El Zonte, El Tunco, and that whole area. It's only 20, if there's traffic, maybe 30 minutes away from the city, but without traffic, you're there in 20 minutes. And if you want to head over to the volcano of San Salvador, which is a very prestigious volcano, which you will see in the background everywhere you drive around in San Salvador. Everywhere you go, you'll see that volcano in the background, and it's a beautiful scene to admire when you first come to El Salvador. If you want to go there, which is a tourist attraction, they have an eco park, they have restaurants where you can try some nice pupusas, which is our national dish. That's only 15 minutes away from the city, from most of the main hotels in the city. You want to go, I don't know, maybe to Santa Ana, to Lake Coatepeque, which is a lake inside the crater of a volcano. Very amazing. That's about 30 to 40 minutes away, so everything's relatively close. You don't have to travel long hours to explore the marvelous places the country has to offer.
And then you've got all
yeah.
the waterfalls too, and the water places. And
Oh
Ronnie,
yeah.
you'd be a prime one for this because I know you've explored a lot of the waterfalls in El Salvador.
I gotta agree with everybody here. Before I opened up the Bitcoin hardware store, I was so in love with the country that I went around and did tours of everything myself. And after a few of them, I got offered to do tours for other people. And so the good thing about El Salvador, like Herbert said, it's so small that you can do a lot of things on your trip. If you want to party, you go to Edunco. You want to surf, you're in Surf City. You want to see nature, you go to either Berlin, San Miguel, or Ruta de las Flores. You want to see waterfalls. You want to see volcanoes. You want culture. There's everything. San Salvador is a good central place to be. And from there, I would definitely say explore. But like the others had mentioned, give yourself some time. The country's super small. You can see a whole lot of it. Give yourself some time. But there really is no wrong choice. Whatever you're looking for, if it's nature, if it's culture, if it's party, if it's Bitcoin, El Salvador has it. So
Random question: does anyone own a car?
Yes.
We do.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Herbert too.
Hmm.
I don't own anything but Bitcoin. So no.
See, that's the way
I'm
to
with
go.
Ronny.
That's the way to be, my friend.
See, because this is the thing about owning a car in Latin America. Anywhere else is very annoying because the cops are always trying to extort you,
Oh no,
and
that
there's
does
just
not happen
weird
here.
Latin
That's
America things.
Mexico.
But that's what I'm saying is like at least in El Salvador, I can get my Toyota Helix, and the cops aren't going to pull me over on some weird shit. I can just enjoy my truck. I can hit the volcano. It sounds
No,
perfect.
I actually have a story to mention. By the way, my phone has low battery, so if I cut off, that's why. Um, that this happened with a couple of friends that I invited to El Salvador. They came here to basically spend the weekend. We went to the beach. We went to Costa del Sol, very beautiful beach. Had a very good time. On the way back, my car blew a tire. So we were stuck on the way back. And they had to head back to the airport. They were on a rush. They were going to miss their flight. So in the meantime, we were trying to get an Uber. And guess what happens? The police stop by. They're like, don't worry, we're going to get you an Uber. And they got them an Uber and took them to the airport in time. That's how nice the police here is. Like and I was even being a Salvadoran, I was like, wow, these guys are great. You know, like that's the kind of spirit you need in a country for the people to thrive. That helping hand kind of spirit.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Sounds amazing. Let's wrap on that. Um, so Bitcoin Farmers Market, Berlin, brand new every month. People can go and check that out.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
Very
the Bitcoin
cool.
Center too. You can't. I think the building that we've created here is incredible. Everyone is pretty much blown away, when they see what we have up here, and this new podcast studio.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
A lot of people probably think we're crazy talking about Bitcoin all the time, but you got to remember that El Salvador has a lot of the things that a lot of other countries have in terms of nice nature and interesting food and culture and things like that. I think Bitcoin, just like the people that it's attracting and the extra interesting activities that it brings, it does add a lot of value. And even though we may seem crazy that we talk about it all the time, it's like, hey, go to these Bitcoin events because you'll meet all these interesting people. Um, yeah, I feel crazy talking about it sometimes, but if you're coming to Latin America for something that is even more interesting than just Latin America, El Salvador is really offering something quite unique.
Absolutely.
Cool. Anyone want to close with a message?
Welcome and visit El Salvador.
Absolutely. Come to El Salvador and see for yourselves that this
Yeah.
country is not only turning things around for its people, but also for the world. We're going to
Yeah.
set an example. We are setting an example
Mm.
that's going to make a historic change globally. And I'm very proud to call myself a Salvadoran. So come and visit.
Come down to Bitcoin Beach. The future is here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, let's wrap it up. This has been another episode of the My Latin Life podcast, the El Salvador Roundtable. Really, really, really thankful to all the guests for making this happen. Guys, when we say bye, hold on for like 5 seconds just so the audio can upload. We don't want to lose anyone's audio. Um, in any case, so thank you to Ronny from the Bitcoin hardware store. Thank you to Ladislas, the wandering investor. Thank you to Herbert Esmahan.
You
Hopefully I
said it
said
right.
that right.
Yes.
Thank you to Nicki and James. Thank you to Quentin. Thank you to Pierre. I'll put everyone's Twitter or links in the show notes so that you guys can reach out to everyone. I'm sure be happy to have you down in El Salvador, and I will be making it happen in 2024. COC, it's going to happen. But yeah, that's it. So for the audience, maybe you're watching this on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Please be sure to subscribe. We're launching 2 episodes every single week. We're publishing 2 brand new episodes, new guests every single week. You won't want to miss any episodes. But thank you to everyone. This has been the El Salvador Roundtable.
Thank you.
For having
Thank you.
us.
Appreciate it.
This episode of the My Latin Life podcast is brought to you in part by Bit Refill. Bit Refill is the best way to spend your crypto in Latin America. Purchase gift cards or mobile refills from more than 3,500 brands in 186 countries instantly, safely, and privately. Visit bitrefill.com for more information. This episode of the My Latin Life podcast is brought to you in part by Job Stacking. Introducing Rolf Haltza's Paycheck Multiplication Layering Method, a revolutionary approach that redefines the traditional career path. This is Rolf's new Done With You program, where he'll work with you to implement job stacking for yourself. With this method, Rolf contractually guarantees that you'll be able to double your income in 45 days. So, are you ready to step out of the shadows of job insecurity and step into a world of career abundance? Then just click the link in the description of this episode, book a call with Rolf, and start walking the path of unleashing your earning potential with job stacking.